gives them a history lesson of like, hey, look at your forefathers, look what has happened before. But it says the people were so blinded by their sin, they were all wondering what Ezekiel was talking about. Like they couldn't understand. They were like, what do you mean we're going to get in trouble for serving other idols? Like, I don't understand where you're coming from. They were so drenched in their sin, like Ezekiel was trying to help them understand where they were, and they were confused by it. It's like trying to tell somebody, listen, if you keep drinking and taking drugs, it's eventually going to kill you. But because they've been doing it for so long, they're confused at the fact that I don't think it can kill me. I've been doing this for 10 years, 20 years now. What are you talking about? Okay, chapter 24. Chapter 24. This one is do not mourn. Chapter 24, do not mourn. Now here, I think this is the hardest chapter here. When I was reading this chapter, and I thought, wow, I can't, like, again, the emphasis of when God calls you to something specific, it's not something you do, it's something you become. In this sense, as a prophet, he wasn't just being a prophet, like it was a part of his whole being. But in chapter 24, this is probably the highest cost of being a prophet. Is this chapter here talks about the death of Ezekiel's wife. Usually mourners would go barefoot and bareheaded, covering their faces and eating mourning food. Ezekiel would do none of this. He was not to mourn the death of his wife. His wife was the person he loved the most in the world. Chapter 24, verse 16. Just note that down. His wife was the person he loved the most in the world. Chapter 24, verse 16. But it is to be another sign to the people. They too will lose what they love the most. Can you imagine how committed Ezekiel was to the calling of God? That God said, I want to use your pain as an illustration for a prophecy. And he says, listen. And I don't know, it doesn't fully explain how, but it says, Ezekiel's wife dies, and God's saying, don't cry for your wife. But also, this scenario is to represent to the people that the thing they love the most is going to be taken away from them because of their sin. And I'm thinking, could you not find another way, God, to send that message to the people? And not actually take the thing I love the most in the world? And then, you know, maybe the best way to even say is putting yourself in those shoes. Imagine God says, I want to illustrate to people the pain of sin if they continue in their own ways. So what I would do is I'm going to take someone you love and hold precious to your heart. And the feelings that you feel when you lose that, that's how they're going to feel if they're going to keep going that way, so that you can better prophesy or speak or evangelize to them. What would you say? Yeah, sure, God. Take the most precious thing in my life out so I can really feel the pain. And that was Ezekiel. Honestly, you know what? I think if Ezekiel wrote this book and is going through all these emotions, it's probably why it's so hard to read this book. He's probably like crying and writing random stuff. You know, and we're trying to read it like, I wish you'd just speak straight. And he'd be like, shut up, I just lost my wife. I've been eating food cooked out of cow dung. I can barely speak, and I'm tied up, and I live in a hole, and I've been sleeping on my side. Give me a break. On top of that, I'm trying to write a book that for the next 5,000 years we're all going to be reading. Okay, where are we? Chapter 25, Foreign Nations. Chapter 25, Foreign Nations. Here there's a long prophecy against Tyre, Tyre, Tyre. Tyre has a Phoenician seaport. Although initially acknowledged Babylonians' rule, it later joined the other states in rebellion. So a lot of states were trying to rebel against Babylon during this time, and I don't think they realized how much of a superpower Babylon was at that time. It was basically that time. Do we have a superpower now? How many superpowers do we have in the world right now? Is it one? Still America, right? I'm like, is Britain a superpower? I doubt that, especially with this whole Brexit thing. It's definitely not a superpower. Okay. This was again just a prophecy of Tyre, and it would fall. And then in here as well, there are 7 oracles against Egypt, and they're all dated about the fall of Egypt. So this is really this area here, chapter 25, chapter all the way to chapter 29. It's just a lot of prophecies against foreign nations and their downfall as well. All right, chapter 33. Chapter 33. So just put chapter 33. This is the overarching theme, and it's restoration. But from chapter 33, it's the watchman. And the number one thing is, what does a watchman do? Overseas. What have you heard? What do you know about a watchman? Go on, Kira. Tell me something.
A watchman. Well, what comes to my head is for fixes things. I don't know what a watchman is.
A watchman would be somebody that would, like a security guard.
Yeah, it's just a good, modern day security guard, a watchman. Usually the one known for, either standing up on a hill or standing in a lighthouse. If they're standing up on a hill, they're watching to see if any enemies are coming in, and if they do see an enemy coming in, they would ring a bell to warn the people to get prepared for battle. Or a watchman was standing in a lighthouse near the seaport areas, and if they see any enemy ships or any foreign ships coming in, they would flash a light, or well, they didn't have electricity then, so they would just start a fire, hold it up, wave it, and to warn the people to prepare themselves. So a watchman was basically taking care of the people and seeing for any enemies, and if they failed to warn the people, obviously that's a lot of trouble for everyone. So Ezekiel was a watchman, obviously, for Israel. But as a watchman is supposed to be warning of things to come. In this case, he was warning the people of God's judgment. But now God's judgment had begun. Now he was to explain to the people how they should respond. So he was still a watchman, but now he's saying, it's too late. The warnings are over. They're not necessary. It's happening right now. So as a watchman, as a shepherd, I'm going to tell you how you're supposed to respond to this situation now. Alright? And then chapter 37. This is the famous chapter that most people know. Some people have heard. Is chapter 37, the Valley of Bones. The restoration promised by God is seen in chapter 37, right? So God's telling Ezekiel, yes, I will restore my people. And he uses the Valley of Bones as an example, right? And so essentially, when the prophet is taken to a valley of dry bones, before his eyes, the bones, this is crazy. Again, never seen this. I love this, is God takes him to a valley of bones. So it's just bones everywhere. And God asks Ezekiel, hey, can these dry bones live? What would you say?
No chance.
No chance. Chrissy, what would you say? God takes you to a valley, just skeletons everywhere. And he goes, hey, Chrissy, you think these dry bones can live?
I was being human. I would agree with Sister Sandra and say no chance. If I was trying to be super spiritual, I'm sure I'd say that. Of course they could, because you're God.
No, yeah, honestly, I thought about it. I was like, no, they can't, Lord. But Ezekiel, now here's what I like that is like, you know, being super spiritual is Ezekiel was pretty super spiritual, right? Like he just faced, the guy just ate a Bible, alright? So I don't know how much spiritual you can get than that, or crazy. And so God asked him the question, can these dry bones live? And Ezekiel says, and I think this is the best answer in the whole Bible, he goes, you know, Lord. You know. Why are you asking me? And I thought, I don't even think I would have thought of that answer if I was in that situation. I was like, that's the best answer you can ever give God. Hey, Jim, do you believe that I can bless you with all these things? You know. You know, Lord. And so obviously these dry bones come. You need to read chapter 37 for yourself. These dry bones come to life. It's like there's just conjoining and flesh is coming upon flesh. I'm telling you, you don't see this in Hollywood, right? And this is an image of the restoration of Israel. And then finally, chapter 40 is the temple. Chapter 40, the temple. The last few chapters of Ezekiel are rather, how do I put it? They're dull. Alright? You're not going to be like, oh, this is the juicy stuff I've been waiting for all day. Just to get, you know when you eat a meal and you come towards the end, and I don't know how you guys eat, but the way I eat is I eat my chips, I eat my other stuff around there, and I leave half my meat for the end. You know what I mean? Like I eat my meat at the end. It's like I'm building up to eat the meat. So I'm like, okay, I'll have the vegetables. I'll have the potatoes. And I'm like, okay, I'll come to the meat by itself. Like, oh, I'll leave an extra piece, and when I'm getting there, I'm like, I'm gonna spoil myself and take my time, right? That's not the book of Ezekiel. It's like you eat all the good stuff, you eat all the stuff, and you come at the end, and it's like a piece of lettuce to finish off the meal. It's not even a dessert. Alright, so this is the temple. He is describing, and in this vision here in chapter 40, he's describing the ideal temple. He's just describing the perfect temple. A temple which will never be built. But man, he's describing it in detail, right? But this symbolizes what the real temple should be about. So he's not just simply describing the perfect temple, but he's also describing what the temple should be about. It is a building from the center of which flows a river which brings life to all land around it. The spiritual heart of the nation. And essentially God is where the river flows out of. And he says this is the perfect temple, but in the midst of that there's this river that fulfills, it enriches lives, and that comes from the Lord himself. And as you read this part here, Ezekiel's vision is remarkable in its precision. He knows the dimensions of every part of the temple. Like he knows how many centimeters, how many diameters, how long, how high, whatever it may be. He knows every exact. It's almost like Noah, when Noah got his instructions to build the ark. This vision, he had such precise directions as to what it's supposed to look like, and this was supposedly the perfect temple. And the river comes from the temple, from the purest presence of God. And the river was to do this, is that the dry bones, the dry valleys, what is dead, will be brought back to life by this life-giving stream. And obviously that stream was God in the midst of that perfectly designed temple. Right. And that is the book of Ezekiel from a bird's eye view in about 50-ish minutes. Any questions? And I understand there's no chance you're gonna get all of that today, and there's no chance you're gonna catch all of that reading it just sitting down. But any thoughts, any statements, any questions, any inputs on the book of Ezekiel?
I mean, I was left when I finished reading it, because you've got to read it over and over again to get it. You know, they said the Lord is there. It left me questioning, well, where's his presence in my life? You know, that temple, I'm like, well, this is meant to be it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because we are the temple now.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And from the temple, as we have the Holy Spirit in us, is to flow out that river. And in this sense, yes, it brings life to you, but it should also bring life to everything that is dry and dead around you. And obviously, when Ezekiel is describing that, he's not thinking the Holy Spirit. So,
No,
yeah.
exactly.
So we're looking at it differently. Kira, are you gonna say something?
I don't know, like I found that quite interesting, and I have took loads of notes to where it felt like a bit of a battle to read it.
Yeah.
Although, like, I found it dead interesting, like listening.
It's nice to listen to. Yeah. It's definitely yeah. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Can I make a suggestion, Kieran?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use the YouVersion Bible. I don't know if you've got that on your app.
Yeah.
And it gives you an overview of chapters of the Bible. So they do, it's the Bible Project. It's really, really good. Now, you still got to read the Bible for yourself.
Yeah.
It gives you a animated, and it just helps me to make sense of.
So where do I find it? It's the overview, did you say?
Yeah, have you got YouVersion?
Yeah.
Right, go on videos,
Huh?
and then go down to the Old Testament. Well, the Old, the New, everything's there.
Yeah.
And with the overview of the actual chapter. So when you read it and then you go back on it, it starts making sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Right, I'm going to try that.
It's really, really helpful. It makes sense later on when you read it. You're thinking, that's what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Bible Project. You can find you can actually just find their stuff on YouTube as well. If you type in the whatever book of the Bible and put Bible Project at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, I haven't looked at the Ezekiel one. I have to see what that's like.
That's why I knew it was his birthday. They suggested it was his birthday. It would have been a priest on that day sitting there. They do a picture of his cake next to him. And suddenly there's a vision, and it just helps you to.
Oh yeah.
But that helps.
That's interesting. Like when you said that, I was like, I didn't find anything about his birthday. I'm like, that's so
cool. They suggested around that time. I think it was like 5 years after. Was it 10? After they got there, he's sitting at the bank of the river, and they guess it's probably his birthday.
Oh, right.
He would have been a priest because would have been. Is it 30 years before they become a priest?
Yeah.
Around that time, yeah, that's where that came from. It's really, really helpful to understand before you read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, well, thank you.
No worries.
Okay, guys. Your next class is. Do you have a break?
No, not yet.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, your next class is going to be.
Bible project.
Sister Anna Crouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright. And we're going to be looking at the book of Daniel. So, you should look up Bible Project, book of Daniel, and then go forth and read. Okay, at this point, if you don't read, go and find a Bible app and listen to the book.
Yeah.
Just listen to it. Alright, and so I'll catch you guys next month. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Alright, bye. Oh, didn't stop the camera.